Hi, I'm Mary Valamides, and I'm going to go over with you the 5th grade STAAR math test that was recently released. We're not going to have another test released for a couple years, so since this is the first test that we have, that we can look at how our new texts will be assessed, we're going to really look and analyze some of these items. As you're watching this video, here are some things you might want to do. You may want to double click on the icon to make sure that you're watching the video on a larger scale so you can see some of the smaller print. At any time, you might want to press pause at the bottom of the screen so that you can read over the items more carefully, and then press play when you're ready to begin. You may want to download the attachments before you start watching more of the video, because you may want to refer to them as you watch the video. And then the PowerPoint will be posted so that you can revisit some of these items later at your own convenience. The agenda, we're going to look over the format of the items, the format of the answer choices. We're going to look at the highest scoring items versus the lowest scoring items by reporting category. What are some of the nuances of the test, some items you may want to notice, and what the impact on instruction will be as we look at all of these items throughout the presentation. Some handouts that you may want to go ahead and download are the texts which are on one page, or you may use your scope and sequence. Either way, you just need something that has the verbiage of the text. The STAAR test that has recently been released. The district heat map, and if you've not seen a heat map before, you'll notice that there's 3 main boxes. The first one is the readiness standards, which is green, the supporting standards, which are yellow, and the process standards, which are blue. You'll notice that the very first column in each box has a student expectation. Then you're going to see checkpoint 1, which are the 2015 STAAR results, compared to checkpoint 2, which are the 2016 Math STAAR results. You'll notice anything red is critical, and anything that's orange is really something we need to watch as well. It's more caution. As you look at these items, look at the gains that we've made, such as 5.3L. We scored 44% mastery last year, or the year before last, and then this last test we scored 53% mastery. So we have made gains in some areas. Then also you'll see at the very bottom here, you'll see a couple of texts that will never be tested. If you see an NT in italicized red bold in any of these columns, that means it wasn't tested in that year. You'll also have an item analysis by campus. This is also sorted by reporting categories first, such as this reporting category 1, then the student expectation that was tested, then the items from the test that were actually covering the student expectation. Then here's the mastery score that we have. So we scored on item number 23, 87% in our district. And then you'll see the way every campus scored on that particular item. So you can see some of the strengths and weaknesses that we have. Also, you have a district item analysis. So this isn't your campus, but it is for the one for the district. So let's look at this one. You have the item number. M1 would be category 1, reporting category 1. 52C is the text, and notice because it's an S, it's a supporting standard. If there was an R there, it would have been a readiness standard. We have our 3 process standards that were covered on this particular item number 1. Anything that's red is the wrong answer. Anything that's green is the correct answer. So D was the correct answer, but we might want to look at item number B, because 23 and 51/100% of our students selected it. So we might want to see what that distractor was covering that may have caused our kids to choose that item. And then you want zeros on this very bottom row, because anytime you have anything other than 0%, that shows you the percentage of students who didn't even answer the problem, such as number 11, 3,500% of the students didn't even try that problem. So always tell them, at least do a good guesstimate. So as we look at our reporting categories, let's see how we did in mastery for each of one of these. It's nice that these numbers are close and tight, because that tells us we have a really tight program. If you look at reporting category 1, we had 72% mastery. Reporting Category 2, Computations and Algebraic Relationships, we had 70% mastery. Our lowest scoring reporting category was Geometry and Measurement, Reporting Category 3. And then Data Analysis and Personal Financial Literacy, we scored 71%. So a category to really look at would probably be Reporting Category 3. So we're going to look at the format of the items, not at the answer choices, just the question part of the items. There are 5 basic types. Number 1 is just a question. There's not a narrative, there's just a question that's being asked. Number 2, there would be a narrative, a break, some numbers, whether it's an equation or expression or a list of numbers, then a break, then a question. Type number 3 would be a narrative and a question. It could be a narrative, break, question, or it could just be a narrative and question in one paragraph. Number 4 would be a narrative. Actually, number 4 would have 2 narratives. One would be a narrative, question, narrative, or a narrative, break, question. Number 5 would have visuals. That would be the distinguishing factor. So it could be a narrative, break, a visual, which could be a diagram, a table, a graph, a number line, and then a break, and then a narrative or a question. So this is the breakdown of each of these items, and you should have a sheet that was one of the attachments that has that breakdown for you. So the activity we're going to do now is we're going to look at each problem. We're only looking at the question portion. We're not looking at the answer choices, and I want you to think about what type of format would this be. Is it a question? Is it one that has numbers, equations, and expressions? Is it just a narrative and a question? Are there 2 narratives, or are visuals involved? So if we're looking just at number 10, we would just look at which model represents 1 2/10 divided by 3. We're not looking at the answer choices. So what type of problem would this be? The format would be a question. We only have a question. Look at number 20. Number 20 has a narrative. Then we have some expressions, and then we have a question. So this is a narrative, number, equations, or expressions, and then a question. Number 2. Notice on number 2 we have 1 paragraph, but it's a narrative, and then we have a question. So this is narrative and question. Number 7. Number 7 has a narrative, then we have a break, then we have another narrative, and notice they're bulleted items, which we're seeing more of on all the tests, then a break, and then we have a question. So it's a narrative, and question. Number 6. Number 6 has a narrative, then we have a visual, which are diagrams, then we have a question. So number 6 is a narrative, visual, question. So here are our 5 types again, and we want to look to see which do you think occurred most often on the 5th grade math test. Here are the results. Question, there were 6 questions. That's 12% of our test. Number 2, there were 6 items that had numbers, equations, and expressions. Again, 12% of our test. There were 16 items that had a narrative and a question, which was 32% of our test. And then we had 4 questions that had a narrative, a break, question, break, narrative, which would be 8% of the test. And then number 5, we had 18 questions that contained visuals in the question portion, whether it was a diagram, table, a graph, or a number line. That was the majority, that was most of the test. 36% of the items had visuals. Did you expect that? So as you look at that, what is the impact on instruction and on assessments? As we continue thinking about that, we're also going to look at the format just on the answer choices. So we're no longer looking at the question portion. We're now looking at just the answer choices. And there's 5 types of answer choices. The first one is numeric. We have numbers or numbers with units, such as 6 cars, 7 trucks, or we have fractions. The second type is algebraic. Here we'll have either expressions or equations. Either way, there will be operational symbols involved. Number 3 would be a visual. Again, a diagram, a table, a number line. This would be a visual. 4 would be a griddable item. And 5 will be a verbal situation, such as having sentences, phrases, or just a few words. So let's look at number 5. What type or format is this answer choice? Notice we see expressions. So this one is algebraic. Number 22. F, G, H, and J contain numbers. So this is numeric. 21. This one has number lines, so it is a visual. But also notice number 21. This particular text asks you to represent 3 divided by 1/3. So the kids need to be able to represent it using a number line. Now, we need to make sure that we're not teaching the kids just flip the number so that we would have 3 times 3 equals 9. That is not what we're trying to get with this particular text. We need a representation, so we need a visual. And 25. Number 25 says at the very bottom, record your answer and fill in the bubbles on your answer document. So we know this is a griddable. And then number 40. Number 40 is a verbal because it has a description of what is in the question. So what do you think the results of these answer choices are? What did we have more of? What do you think? Numeric, we had 23 items, which was 46% of the test. Algebraic, we had 6 items, which was 12% of the test. Griddable, there were 3 items, which is 6% of the test. Verbal, we had 5 items, which is 10% of the test. And visual, we had 13 items, which is 26% of the test. So what is the impact on instruction and on all your test items? Did you expect so many visuals? You have a handout that's available to you. Anything, as you'll notice, for example, the first one, let's look over the columns. We have the item number, the reporting category, whether it was a readiness or supporting standard, what the main content SE is, the process standards that were covered, what was the correct answer, so you basically have the answer document to the STAAR test, then our district performance, such as this item number 5, our district performed 86% meeting the standard. That was a rating of 44 out of 50 items. So therefore this was a green item because it was a high scoring item. Notice our highest scoring item is the one that's 50 because that's the last amount of numbers on the test. And you'll notice that that was number 11. So that was our highest scoring item. Anything that's red is a low scoring item, such as number 10. It's the 6th lowest item, as our district scored a 52% mastery. Now, the next column has the format of the question, so that you can have this to refer to whenever you're studying a student expectation. You can see how it was possibly tested, what format they used in 2016. And then what the format of the answer choice was as well. Now the reporting categories in this document and another one that we'll be looking at in a minute, anything that's salmon colored is reporting category 1. Anything that's a light blue is reporting category 2. Anything that is a mustard color is reporting category 3. And anything that's green is reporting category 4. So now we're going to look at the highest scoring items per reporting category. As we look at these, I want you to think, what are the similarities that we're seeing? We're going to go through these by reporting category. You'll see on the right side how many questions are tested in each reporting categories and what the student expectations are for each. Anything that's bolded is the readiness standard. As we go through these, you're going to see that at the very top we'll have the reporting categories, such as this is reporting category 1. It's the highest scoring in reporting category 1, and the text was 5.2b. 87% mastery is what we had on this particular item. And in parentheses, if you see highest scoring or the second highest, that'll tell you how it is on the test as well. So now as we look at these items, I want you to see the commonality of them. I'll be quiet so that you can read. So what did you notice about the highest scoring items? Most of these items were mostly one step. If you notice the graphs, they were merely representation of one graph to another, such as a dot plot to another type of graph. The visuals were easy to understand and to apply. The answer choices mainly were short, or they're visuals. And the question stems, for the most part, weren't as wordy. So let's look at the lowest scoring items per reporting category. Again, we'll have the same format on the type of question. And remember, anything in parentheses tells you how that item scored on the entire test. So now for the lowest. So what did you notice about the lowest scoring items? Most of these items were multi-step problems. The visuals were very critical to the answer. The vocabulary was critical, and the question stem was wordy in most cases. But definitely multi-step items so that the kids have to do more critical thinking. So what is the impact on instruction? So how can we improve? Some things to consider are cognitive alignment. When you select an activity, make sure they're aligned to the text. Pay special attention to the verbs of the text. If it says represent, make sure that we're representing in that particular activity. Vocabulary is very critical. We need to make sure the kids know the vocabulary. So teach the vocabulary and refer to it throughout your lessons. Assessments. The more open-ended types of questions that you can give to your students, the more gain they will make. Anytime they have to explain or justify, they're able to internalize more what they're learning. So try to get away from the multi-choice items as much as possible. Even if you give the kids just a ticket out with a couple of questions that they have to explain how to solve a problem or explain their answer, that will give you more gain with your students. Lowest scoring concepts, spiral them. Have a spiral review station where you review especially the lowest scoring items that we just went over. Computation is big. The kids need to know their facts because that helps them with any of these problems. And then problem solving. Use UPS check. You don't have to use the Foursquare, just the critical thinking. What is it I need to find? So you have this basic facts mastery chart. Notice for 5th grade, it's the very last row that you'll want to make sure you have those skills mastered by that section of 9 weeks. That way you will be able to fulfill all those expectations for your students before you give the test. Remember, you only have 115 instructional days throughout the year to teach all of your texts before we have our first STAAR test. Now, at the very top, it tells you that step 1 covers procedural knowledge. Here's where the kids learn conceptually what these particular facts are and how to apply them, even if it's a whole number divided by a fraction. Stage 2, the kids gain strategies such as using a number line. Stage 3, the kids know it with automaticity. So please refer to this when you're looking at your basic facts for your grade level. These are also in your pacing guides that tells you what you're working on for every 9 weeks. So now we're going to take a look at some questions from the STAAR test that I just wanted to share with you. If you look, I've taken all the questions, this question stems, and I've sorted them by the very first word of the question stem. Again, the colors that you're seeing, green is for reporting category 4. The mustard color is reporting category 3. The salmon color is reporting category 1. And 2 would be light blue. So if you look at these, such as, look at your how questions. In all grade levels, in 3rd, 4th, and 5th, it seemed like our how questions came more from our reporting category 2. So that would be something to think about. Also notice that we have mainly readiness standards that are involved with these how questions. So as you look at these things, you might want to look at these questions and look at the question items that we have and see what kind of questions do we ask more often on the 5th grade math test. You can pause this presentation now and look at that handout and analyze your questions, or you can wait till the end of the presentation to do that. Some nuances of the STAAR test. Not. Not is not capitalized, it's just bold-faced in lowercase. Here are some uses of not in 5th grade. However, I do want to show you that on the 4th grade test, there was actually an item that not was not bolded. So be aware that that is a possibility, and we'll probably be seeing that on CBAs that way. Also, there's various answer choices. This seemed to happen more in the geometry and measurement strand. Notice that we can have shapes 1 and 3 only, shapes 2 and 4, or we can have 3 shapes. This used to be taught mostly in high school, but notice that we have it as low as 3rd grade now. The items are more rigorous. In some cases, the kids have to create the problem or the answer choice so that they can see what the answer would be. Such in this particular item, they have to actually create the rhombus to be able to answer the question. Notice it's a blank grid with points and a question. Not here is one of the answer response choices, such as on number 44. J, the answer was not here. Griddable items. Historically, we don't do very well with griddable items. They are open response items, so it does involve more critical thinking. Usually, we do have a multi-choice item with griddable items. This is number 12. But notice number 25, this actually has an expression in the middle of the item, so that's a little unusual. There have been other grade levels that have a visual of some sort in the item, such as 4th grade. This was the lowest scoring item for 4th graders. The kids had to fulfill the table and then do the multi-step problem. Since griddable items are historically low, it could be because it's an open response item. It could be because the kids aren't as familiar with doing grids. So I just want to remind you that you do have some grids available in Eduphoria. If you look under Yearly Content Documents and then go to State Assessment Information, when you click that, then this should open, and you'll see the very first item are STAAR practice grids for 2014. It started in 2014, but of course we still have those. Then at the very bottom, you'll click the attachment, and when you do, you'll have a page of grids available. So you can use your snippet tool and just copy or clip one of these grids and put it with your questions that you're asking. That way you're going away from multi-choice items and also practicing gridding and answer choice. Here are some items that I'd like for you to notice and some strategies that we can use with them as well. Notice this was the 13th lowest item. Whenever you do UPS check, you can use closed reading strategies as far as using annotations when you're doing that very first part of understand. So if you look at this particular problem, the kids can underline 5 books in order. We need to order them from least to the greatest, and we're looking for the 4th position. Notice I've used different color highlights. I am not underlining the entire question, just the important words. So I'm using closed reading strategies so that I can understand what is it I need to find. So I need to find the 4th position. And they have to be from least to greatest. Also, use your reference chart. Notice on the 5th grade test we did need to use the ruler. Here's an item where the kids had to find the part of the graph that's missing. This was an interesting way to test composite numbers. And vocabulary is so important. Notice on this particular item, the students had to understand the attributes of a cube to be able to answer this question. And of course, on financial literacy, they had to know the definition of the word. There were 6 tasks that were not tested on the 2016 STAAR test. So as you prepare for STAAR and you might think of using possibly this test, you might also consider doing some items over the essays that were not tested because they can be tested next year. So as we think forward on lesson plan design, effectively align your text to the depth, which is the verb or the thinking part of the text, and then the complexity of the text. What are the concepts, the context, and the academic vocabulary involved of the STAAR without multiple choice practice or test-taking strategies? Some reminders: use your reference charts. Have them available to the kids, make copies of them for the kids so they can use them whenever they're doing their homework or classwork. Use centimeter grid paper. Have it available, or pass out the boards that have the grid on one side, the centimeter grid, and the blank side on the back side, so that way you don't have to waste paper. Also, use those griddable items so the kids are more familiar with them. The UPS check posters, you should have them by now, as well as the strategies posters. Make a copy of them and have the kids put it in their notebooks so that they can refer to them when they're doing their homework. Also, I'll refer to the vocabulary word wall as you teach, and do some interactive word wall activities. That could be a workstation. And whenever you start a new concept, and you have a lot of concepts that are on the conceptual level from 7th grade, always start with the manipulatives, then go to the pictorial model, and then to the abstract model. Thank you for listening to this presentation. Please contact me if you have any questions. I'm always available for you. Thank you. Have a good day.